Hello, please introduce yourself. What is your name and where are you from?
I am Lorenzo Giovannetti and I come from Rome, and I study at I have studied at the University of Tor Vergata, and I am currently a research fellow in a institution in Naples, Istituto Italiano per gli Studi Filosofici. And yeah, I got my PhD in cooperation with the University of Sussex, and it was a European doctorate, so that's it.
Where your sphere of professional interest lies in, just briefly, just Plato or antiquity in general? So
I have a twofold interest. It is on the one hand the study of ancient Greek philosophy, especially Plato, in subjects like the relation between language and reality, the question of metaphysics. And on the other hand, I'm interested in those issues as they are treated in a contemporary debate, especially in the so-called analytic philosophy.
I see. And what will be your report on the conference in particular? Just briefly, maybe, what will be the main concept of it?
Yeah, the talk I will be giving is titled Jaco Intica, Interpreter of Plato, and Jaco Intica is an analytic philosopher of the last century. He was a logician, but he has also had an interesting output in exegetical articles, especially on Aristotle and Plato as far as ancient philosophy is concerned, but also on Kant and Wittgenstein. So I'm going to talk about some very interesting concepts he put forward in treating Plato's philosophy, especially with regard to knowledge and the relation between truth and time. Yeah.
So my question also would be kind of provoking, because we as scholars who study ancient studies, we usually are asked and questioned whether there is any value or importance of our studies to modern society and what can we actually offer to them, so why we're studying all that old stuff. What do you think is the value and importance of all of that for us today?
Yeah, I think this is a question that we philosophers or students of philosophy are frequently required to answer. So I think that philosophy in general has a huge input on modern society. And I think the case of ancient philosophy, first, I think it's a matter of language. We can't literally speak without all the words stemming from ancient Greek and Roman world. So I think it is mainly a reflection on the power of language and the specific language that we have been delivered. And so this would be a first question. In general, I think that a historical study of ancient thinkers, not just ancient, also medieval and so on, can help the people in the present to detach themselves from the present time and so develop a kind of critical skill, which is, I think, really important to the survival of society today. Yeah.
So what do you think, because for Russia, because of the Orthodox Christianity which we have here, Plato was always the most important figure from the antiquity, even more important than Aristotle. For your country, maybe because of the scholastics, for whom Aristotle was just the god and pater noster. What is the role of Platonic studies, of Platonic corpus Platonicum in your country and for the scholars? Are many of them pay attention to it, study it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we in Italy have a quite developed field of studying ancient philosophy because we are, as it were, soaked in ancient culture. You can go anywhere in Rome, for example, not just Rome, and find the vestiges of that glorious past. So we have, for example, probably each university, each philosophy department an ancient philosophy course. Okay, and we also study Latin and ancient Greek at the high school. Not everyone, but quite a lot of people study this. So I think there is a strong penetration of those topics in what we nowadays consider culture. Yeah.
There is a question on how do scholars exist in terms of the government and modern society. There are different opinions on how should government or shouldn't influence anyhow the scholarship. What do you think, if you would be a politician, for example, would you change something in the sphere of academic studies in your country, or you would not be interrupting anyhow?
No, I think that those critical skills I mentioned have, of course, have a strong political value. But by this, I do not mean that politics and research should be so transparently connected. I mean, each branch of knowledge has its own criteria and objectives, and only the scientist or the researcher in general knows or attempts to know what's the right direction in pursuing his or her studies. So this is a first point. On the other hand, of course, this goes to my field. So if I were a politician, I would strongly enhance the funding to the humanities, which unfortunately are very frequently, considered the last part of, So in this sense, I would strongly, recommend a development in the humanities, because they have a positive social value, and they help, get out the technical mindset, which is not wrong in itself, but maybe they can, open the mind of people in general. So I think, but I see that this is from my very perspective. So
of course, we have our own perspective, all of us. Just Plato was always considering philosophers responsible for the society, and he always wanted to create some kind of philosophic ideal state where a philosopher would be a governor and will just control everything. Do you think that we should try to somehow achieve that goal, or?
Yeah, this is a vexata question, or vexated question. From my point of view, I think that Plato was wrong. I mean, or maybe he thought we could attain a form of pure and total knowledge according to some interpretation, which is also mine. But I think that was his objective, and I'm quite skeptical about that. I mean, that we have so strong a knowledge that we can give order to society without those parts of society having any weight in it. So I think it's quite, I don't want to say that Plato was the totalitarian political thinker like Karl Popper said, for example. But I think that his expectations, his goals were, as always, determined by his time. And his time is not ours. And so I think we should stop thinking that studying ancient philosophers is only a matter of, draining, interesting point of view or theories, but they have a value, especially in the distance they have with regard to our time and objectives. Yeah.
So probably if you could find any drawbacks in what do scholars of modern time doing? I mean, in ancient antiquity studies, what would you probably change in our approach? Do you see that we are somehow choosing the wrong path, or what could you just make to offer to improve it? I mean, in general, the society itself. Society of scholars.
The problem is that probably the whole Western philosophical tradition can be considered a long remarking and commenting on ancient Greek philosophers. Not just Greek, also the Roman. On the other hand, we face a brand new problem, which is the extension of our knowledge and research is so vast that we can by no means manage it. So I think that the best thing to do is contaminating the study of ancient philosophy with some related branches of knowledge like textual philology and linguistics and anthropology of the ancient world. But also, I think that if one is to tackle the issues of ancient philosophers, that person needs to be also some theoretical, philosophically speaking, theoretical skills. So we cannot ignore the modern developments of philosophy. And in what I'm interested in I think that analytic philosophy is a great source of inspiration without ever neglecting the difference, as I said before. So I think that this is a good way to deal with ancient philosophy. Yeah.
Kind of enriching it with different other...
Yeah, this is difficult because it implies that you have to study a lot. Yeah. But I mean, this is our work.
And it's a challenge for all of us. All right, so if you would have to wish something to your colleagues, what would you, in Russia, in St. Petersburg, what you would wish to them?
I hope that, I think that university and research in general is like an oasis, where people who share their commitment to knowledge can, interact amiably, and I think this is one of the best things we can do, and I hope that everyone here will have this opportunity for a long time. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.